Why your backspin is weak, the one secret you're missing. I want to share a training method with many friends. Some friends want to improve their backspin or want to enhance the spin on their serves. First, I want to tell everyone that you need to practice serving during your training. First, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Sometimes, you don't have to serve directly to the table. You need to first find the feeling of applying force. You really feel the effort afterwards. It's all about the feeling of brushing the ball. First, you need to pay attention to your stance. Second, focus on the part of the ball you make contact with. Once you notice these 2 points, for example, if you want to serve a backspin, when you contact the ball, the part of the ball you hit must be very low. This way, you can combine these 2 techniques, no matter how your stroke looks. But I believe if you master these 2 principles, your backspin will improve significantly. First, in your regular training, one principle is not to fear making mistakes. The other is that you don't have to hit directly to the table. When you stop worrying about the length, you must quickly generate enough spin. Just hit the ball to the baseline. You can see that the backspin ball comes back quickly. So you can practice at this table. I might come up and not be afraid. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. I must generate enough spin. So be sure to pay attention to the part of the ball you hit and the angle. Also, you need to apply force when making contact with the ball. You must have a kind of braking action upon contact. This is a process of friction. This way, the ball will have spin. You shouldn't just rely on having many friends to hit. He feels that my movement seems to be correct, including the fact that I'm actually hitting the bottom of the ball, right? But actually, without that sudden friction, you won't be able to generate strong spin. So I suggest everyone, when starting out, first practice with just your hands. Or you can do it based on your current conditions. You can hit from any position. Friction increases the speed of the ball. There is a process of friction acceleration. Let's use this topspin as an example. You need to accelerate before hitting the ball. Then, focus on the point of contact. I'll teach you a method to determine a half step out, or rather, a way to handle it. First, you need to judge the landing point of your opponent's return. If this landing point is generally within half of the table, then, if it is a backspin ball situation, there's a high probability it should be a short ball. You may notice that the opponent's first bounce is relatively longer. After this position, the likelihood of it being a half step out will increase. So let's return to the question we discussed earlier. We need to make a judgment first. You need to focus on this ball. You need to identify what kind of spin it really has. Basically, our professional or top athletes rarely make judgment errors. For example, mistaking backspin for topspin and topspin for backspin happens quite infrequently. But of course, when it comes to serve receiving techniques, there are. These mistakes are relatively fewer. Now let's discuss serving a short ball and a half-long ball. You can serve in any way you like, okay? Then I can judge the incoming ball from my opponent. I also recommend that everyone, when receiving a half-long ball, there's no need for overly large movements, right? I believe there's no need for a wide swing to generate power. Just focus on generating speed with the ball. Make sure to place the ball well to create a good setup for your subsequent attack. So you should keep your hand a bit closer to the table. This way you can still play a short ball. For a long ball, just pull back a little. If you try to pull all long balls like this, then the short ball will definitely come up. It's a motion similar to pulling out a drawer. So I suggest everyone, when you're halfway away from the table, to keep your hand slightly closer to the table. This way, even if your initial judgment is, your second reaction can still fix the situation. If you find the ball is long, just pull your hand back. If it feels short, in that moment, bring your hand down directly from the table. Whether you are returning short or pushing long. the fundamental judgment is this. You need to focus on your opponent's specific position during the first bounce. Also, don't stand too far away from them. Find a comfortable stance. And don't pull your hand too wide. Once you completely pull your hand away, make it a bit shorter, or say, sometimes when it's halfway out, just about out, you might have trouble handling this ball. So I suggest everyone keep their hand closer to the table. If it's a short ball, move it indirectly. For a long ball, you'll notice this ball needs to be out on the second bounce. Actually, this halfway out isn't necessary to hit like our top athletes can directly smash the ball to the opponent. As long as everyone can make the call. Get the ball in your hands and raise it up to gain the initiative for your next rally. I actually think that's already sufficient. So, what are the ways to handle a short ball? One of the most common responses in a match is to push short and then follow with a long flick. There are many techniques, including what we call fakes and feints. These are a series of deceptive movements. Now, let's start with the basics of returning a short ball. There are many push and long flick combinations, including fakes and pushes. Many players have noticed a problem, that sometimes, even though they know how to handle the ball, they still struggle. He didn't manage this personal factor well. He was unprepared. He might think this ball is short and wants to flick it, but I might choose to push it long or return it short. When dealing with this ball, you first need to ensure your feet are in the correct position. When the ball comes, it is indeed a short ball. This is about footwork and being aware of moving first. Many amateur players may currently need to improve. Sometimes they may feel that in this training, their skills or their training level are not at this standard. This is also the biggest problem I have noticed so far. When it comes to competitions, players often overlook many details. They focus all their attention on themselves. They only think about how to play. But I don't focus on what kind of ball my opponent is playing. Or when the opponent's ball comes over, he only thinks about how he wants to return the ball. He doesn't pay attention to the preparatory movements before making contact, or the footwork to get into the most comfortable position, because during training, your hitting point might feel more comfortable. One reason is that your mindset is relatively relaxed, and your mindset remains relatively calm. You also don't view it as a competition. I must score, I must win, so you can play more comfortably. Your ball placement is also quite predictable. In a match, your opponent will try to put you on the back foot. You need to find a way to score, and how to return the ball to you. So with many uncontrollable factors. First, everyone needs to assess the situation. These are two very critical aspects. You need to remind yourself after every half ball is played. You must ensure that your feet are always ready, so they can be activated at any moment. In fact, during the game itself, or while making your judgments, it shouldn't affect your feet's ability to anticipate and react in advance.
Read more about table tennis on my blog, PingSunday.com. Get free ebook and coaching advices. See you in the next video.